welcome to Burntwood Workshop. Today we're going to talk about dice towers and how I came up with the idea, what I'm doing with them, and different sounds of them, because big ones sound different than the small ones. Anyway, I like the sound of them. I started out, my first one was something like this. My grandson does Dungeons and Dragons, and he wanted me to make him a dice tower. And at the time I had a 5.5 watt laser, so I made the whole tower out of 3/4 inch pine. And then we did this design and engraved it. And with the 5.5 watt laser, this engraving took about 17 hours. So it's like, well, I won't ever be doing another one of those. Then I got my XTool S1 with a 40 watt laser. And I said, well, geez, I'll give that a try. And this tower, I redesigned the tower so I could cut the whole tower out with the laser and the tray. With my grandson's, the tray was kind of a stuck-on piece. It wasn't as nice, and he liked it, but I wasn't happy with it. So I redesigned this with the tray and everything with the S1, and it turns out from 17 hours, this takes about 50 minutes aside to cut it out and engrave it. So quite a difference. And doing this with the 3/4 inch pine, there was a lot of routing and a bunch of different stuff that I had to work around, and took a lot more work. This was my original design, and then I did another one like this. I came up with this design, and neither one of them sold. Too big. So my brother asked me if I could make him a smaller one with a gnome design on it. And I said, sure. So I made him one. They loved it. So I made another one, and I took it to a show. And before I sold that one, somebody ordered a custom one with skull engravings on it. And I made that, and then I sold the gnome one. And I said, you know, the smaller size must be better. So the next show I went to, I brought 2 dice towers, and I sold both of those. I was like, well, I need to do more of them. So I sell these small ones pretty well. The big ones, I may have sold one. I think I sold one. But I started out with these with engraving, and I bought the designs for these, but I couldn't, how do you say that? The stonework on this one, I can sell the stonework, but I didn't have the rights to it. So what I did was I AI generated a stonework design through XCS, and with this one, I can actually make it available. So if somebody wants to buy this one with the stonework design and everything on it, I'm going to make that available through XTool and XCS. The engraving ones were where I started, and then I moved into sublimation, and I did a polyacrylic sublimated one, and I'll do close-ups of these in a minute. But I did one with polyacrylic and sublimation, and that came out pretty nice, and I started doing the laminate sheets in sublimation, which is what we're going to go over a little bit. We're going to show some of that. I did the sublimation with laminate sheets, and it came out nice and smooth. It came out really nice. So I did this dragon design. I AI generated all this through XTool's AI generation, which is a lot of fun. And I said, well, not everybody is into gaming D&D type stuff. So I said, well, why don't I do something different? And I designed this autumn leaf one, cityscape scenes, for something different. So if you're going to make these dice towers, the sky's the limit on what you can put on them. I mean, you could put family pictures on them. You could put anything you want with sublimation. It's amazing what you can do with these. I'm going to go over the sublimation a little bit, and I'll show how to assemble these, because that part's a little tricky. But I'll have a video of assembling, and I'll make that video of assembly a separate video, so you can just watch that, or you can watch the whole video on how I do this. And I'll run a little video of each one of these so you can see all the sides on them and see what you can do with them. Stay tuned. So in this step right here, we're putting our laminate sheet onto our painted board, and we're going to go at 380 to 385 for 15 seconds. And here we are, done. We're going to take our piece out. Now, sometimes you'll end up with little bubbles on it. What I'll do is I'll take my squeegee and I'll just run it across. Just smooth it out. And when you put your sublimation on, it usually smooths it out anyway. but I just do that. And then we're going to do the other side of this so we can get a good size piece on this. So put this laminate sheet, and we're just going to, whoops, she's still a little warm, which means it'll stick without tape. And we'll take this and we'll stick her back in here. Put our parchment paper back over it. We'll pop her down. We're going to run again. Okay, so here's our other side done. And you'll get a little bit of smoking. That's normal. Don't worry about it. I'm just going to run this over it just to make sure it's down nice. And there is our, whoops, I do it with the parchment paper because sometimes this can stuff the laminate and you'll leave marks. Okay, that's just the wood. Okay, so we're all laminated. And then we're going to sublimate. Okay, so this is our last one. And then I'll show you all of them. It's going to be hot. I'm just going to grab that with a pot holder and pop the paper off for a reveal. And I somehow lost my other pot holder. Well, we'll just risk it. So here is our autumn cityscape. That's one. That is the entry, or the dice tower opening. Here's our Eiffel Tower. And that's our last side right there for our autumn cityscapes dice tower. So this is what the sublimation plans look like, and what you'd end up with is your first page would be all of your sides and your top that you can sublimate, and then the next part would be the tray, which you could sublimate, and I made that a different color so you could separate it. And then this would be all your internal parts and the bottom for the tower itself. And these are 15 inches, so 12 by 16 panel would work for that one. I think this one was a 12 by 12 panel would be fine. Yes, a 12 by 12 panel would be fine for that. So that's what you would need for these. And on this one would be set up for the sublimation. What I would do is I would pre-paint and sublimate these before you cut them out and make your sublimation image bigger. So I'd make the sublimation image, these are 3.5 by 7. I might even make them 3.75 by 7.25, something like that, so you got a little bit of room to adjust your crosshairs and cut it out, or however your laser sets things up. That was one of the things I learned, is sublimating first, then you don't end up with a little white line when you sublimate onto your pre-done board. On these pieces also, you might want to finish the back side of the back one, just because you're going to see that from the inside. The other two, you're not going to see from inside. These two pieces, you're not going to see the inside because you're going to have your internal pieces here. They're going to glue to those. So I would probably finish those also before you cut them out. Then you could just put it together all pre-finished. And the ramps, I always pre-finish. Okay, so we've got all our pieces to our dice tower laid out. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with the bottom and one side. And I use CA glue for this. So we're going to, and what I'll probably do is once I get gluing, I'll speed it up in the parts where I'm not explaining the installation, just so you can see it, but don't have to watch it in real time. Coming out, there we go. All right, so and I've got these towers that I've had for about a year now that are holding up really nice this way. Okay, this is our first section right here. We're gonna, oh, hang on, missed this one. You want to make sure you get all the tabs. That way you know she's going to hold up. And then once you get this part right where you want it, you can spray it with some activator. Okay, so there's our first section. So this is the back and the side, and this will be the other side. So the first thing we want to do is we want to set, and on these I do a mixture of wood glue and CA glue just to save a little bit of money on CA glue because wood glue is a lot cheaper. So I just put enough CA glue to hold it in place. Once I get it pumping again, and I just put a little dot in each corner. Smear the excess wood glue around. Set that one. And then our next side gets glued on. Come on. And you could assemble these with wood glue if you wanted, or you can do it however you want. So there's our second side. We're gonna just give that a squirt. Push that in tight. You just want to make sure they're all pushed in tight so all your seams are nice and tight with no gaps. Okay, so here's our next section. So now we want to take our other ramp and we want to put some glue on that. I spend more time waiting for the CA glue to come out than anything else some days. Okay. That is the support set for the bottom ramp. Now, this is our bottom ramp. And it doesn't have to be glued, but I put a little bit of glue on it just so it doesn't rattle. And actually I could probably just do that with a little bit of wood glue. And that's our bottom ramp. Alright, now once we've got the bottom ramp in, we're going to glue our side on. And you don't want to get carried away and glue both sides on because you got to set one of the ramps before the side is glued. When it starts coming out poorly, clip the end. It's a nice thing about these tubes is they work pretty well. Alright, so we get our first side set. Once you get your first side set, you're going to want to set this ramp into it. All right. All right, some reason we've got an issue here. Why is this one not going in here? All right, there we go. Never had it going quite that tight. Okay, once you get that ramp in, then you want to glue up this side. Keep a paper towel handy, wipe your fingers off on, helps. You want to make sure you put the CA glue across the top because you really want that and the front to be solid. So now once we've got this, slide that onto that ramp like that. And push this down to the lower ramp just like that. And then you just put a little dab of glue on this. And slide it in like that. Make sure your sides are lined up nice. Push everything in. And then once you get it all set, you can give a little squirt of the activator to make sure that's all solid. There. Then we're ready to put our front on. And that's just going to be more CA glue. Alright, and I just put that across the top a little early, but we're putting the top on next anyway, so it's okay. So might as well get all of this. And you want to make sure your front is glued real well, because that's the part that's probably going to get pulled on and everything else. Okay, so once we set that in like that, we can you want to be careful if you got CA glue on your fingers, it'll mark up your piece. So right now I'm doing that and things are sticking. So I'm a little more cautious than I am. Okay, now we've got this in, we can put our top on. And there's our top. So this is our Autumn Leaves Cityscape dice tower. So the tray is real simple. Basically, you just want to make sure your design is facing out and glue it up. That's it. So when I was doing the video, somehow I lost the part where I had the settings for the sublimation. I've done a video on this before, but just so you have them from this video, to sublimate the laminate sheet onto the board, that is 380 to 385 for 15 seconds. To put the sublimation onto the laminate sheet, that is 395 to 400 for 60 seconds. And when I did this, I cut the wood with the laminate sheet out first, and then I sublimated on it. I would change that now to doing the laminate and the sublimation and then cutting it out and making it a little larger, because on 3 instances that I've done that, somehow I've ended up with a little white area where it slid when I sublimated it. Maybe the paper slid, I don't know how it happened. It shouldn't have, because this was a square cutout and I ended up with a white line. So I would sublimate first and then cut. That's my suggestion there. And here we have my cobblestone dice tower with a cobblestone tray. I put a crest with a dragon on this one and hand painted them. And the sides on these are just plain cobblestone. The sheets were stained with a gray stain and then polyacrylic before engraving and cutting, so that once you assemble it, it's all pre-finished. And the interior is done in a different colored stain, which could be done in gray, whatever you choose. And here's my sublimated dice tower with dragons. This was done with painted on polyacrylic, so it's not quite as smooth as it would be with the laminate sheets. But I'll be offering these for sale with the laminate sheet design rather than this. This is just my display model. And you could do the tray up with flames or skulls or anything you want. Not into gaming, but like to play dice games? This is my Fall Cityscapes dice tower with a fall leaf pattern tray. And all sides are done in a nice autumn cityscapes design. So I hope you liked the Dice Tower video. If you did, give a thumbs up, subscribe if you'd like to see more. Leave a comment if you'd like to see some more ideas. I plan on doing another one of these dice towers with some infusible ink and engraving and some different things like that. I did some infusible ink, sublimation, and engraving on one of my videos, and I'm going to do a dice tower with some of that on it in the future. If you're interested in that, leave a comment. I will make these files available through Etsy and through YouTube, through XTool's Atom program, and I will also have the finished products available in my Etsy store and in my own store. So if you'd like to buy a finished tower, you can go that route, or you can get the design and make whatever you want. So thanks for watching.